Okay. First of all, can you guys hear me? Just making sure. Okay. Yeah. So today is, I believe, the seventh day. Future of Tanzania. Um, and yeah, we'll just get started. So actually, the first person to go next is me. So I will share my screen. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over some of the coding bat problems that we gave for homework. So yeah, if there's any specific questions you'd like me to go over, um, you can put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just be going mostly in order, um, so that just for continuity. So yeah, we'll first go with warm up 2. And then first one, string times. So here, given a string and a non-negative integer n, we want to return a larger string that is n copies of the original string. So basically, if we have whatever string that we have first, we want to repeat it a certain number of times, which is specified by our second parameter. So our string is going to be in our string. The string parameter, and our number is going to be in the n parameter. So one way that you can do this is to just use a simple for loop. So we can write for I in range n, we print string. And what this is going to do is basically just for every it's just gonna print the string n times, which is exactly what we want. So that's how that's. Oh yeah, we want to return. Sorry, forgot. Um, um, hold on. Sorry. I was returning string once. That's not what we want. We want to we want to have a second string, which is just going to be our final string. So I'll just name it final string, and I'll make that equal to nothing for now. And then for every iteration of our for loop, we don't want to return it. We just want to add the string that we have to our final string and then return that after. So we'll just do something like this: final string plus equals string, because that just adds the string to the end of it, and then we're going to return final string. So that should be correct. Yeah, sorry. The return should be on the outside, and we just have to add it in, not just return it. Okay. Next. So, given a string and non-negative, we want to return the first 3 letters, or the characters, I mean, of the string. So basically, whatever the last, however many there are, we don't worry about that. We just need to worry about the first 3. So, this one's going to be pretty similar to what we have, but instead we're going to we're going to first we'll just make our final string, and then just set that equals to nothing, and then our for loop is going to do the same thing for I in range n. And then here, instead of returning string, we're going to, or sorry, instead of like adding string, we're going to um, add the first three characters of string. So just something like this. And then we can return our final string. Oops. Sorry, wrong symbol. Oh, what? Sorry. Um, yeah, we're going to just put in our first three letters. We're going to add the first three letters of our string to our final string. And then we're going to return the final string. So similar to the one that we had before, except instead of just adding fully string, we're going to um, just get the first three. Okay. Okay. So next one, string bits. Here we want to just return a string that's made of every other character. So we want to get the first character, the third character, the fifth character, seventh character, and so on. Um, so first thing that we'll do is we'll just make like, sorry, we'll make like a result variable. Um, and we'll just be using that to have what we return. And then we're going to use a for loop to basically um, get the characters that we want, the very specific ones that we want. So we're going to do something a little bit new, or not. I guess not new, but like something that we don't usually do with our range function, which is 0 to len of string, and then we're going to specify 2. So, oh, sorry, I need the colon there. And the 2 basically just makes it so that um, we're uh, skipping every other number. And then we're just going to do the same. We're just going to add the um, we're going to add the string, or like the character of that string, to our result, like this. And then of course we need to return our result. So we're just going to return result. Yeah, like that. Okay. Um, so here we're basically given some specific code. Um, yeah, given some, or sorry, not a code, given a specific string, we want to basically um, we want to get the first letter, and then the first two letters, and then the first three letters, and so on until we end up printing the actual string. So, for example, with our with code, we have C and then CO, COD, CODE, and so on, and then until we get to CODE, where we can just stop. Um, so for this one, we're going to first have our little oops. We're gonna have our result string. So that's just something like that, like usual. And then after we want to make a variable that gets the length of our string. So I'll just use L for that equals len of the string. And then we basically just want to add like each specific part, like C and then CO and then COD into our result string. So we're going to use a for loop for I in range L plus 1. Oops. We're basically going to be adding the string from 0 to L. So result plus equals str from 0 to, or not L, sorry, 0 to I. And then this is basically just going to, every iteration, we're going to be adding 1 until we get to L plus 1. Or I guess L, but still. And then, of course, we need to return our results. Results, there you go. And yeah, like that. So yeah, we get the length, then we just iterate up to that length. Okay, so next one, we just want to okay, well, given a string, return a count of the number of times that a substring length 2 appears in the string, and also the last 2 characters of the string. Okay. For this one, sorry, 1 second. For this one, we're going to, sorry. We're basically just, like, for example, here, when we have high, we're basically, like, how do I put this? We're counting the number of times that a specific substring of length 2 appears in a given string. It's a bit, yeah. So yeah. First thing we're going to do, we're going to create an if statement, and then we're going to, we're going to create an if statement and check if the length of the string is less than 2, because of course if it's less than 2, then there's going to be no substring of length 2, because it's too big. So we're going to check for that, and then if that does happen, we're going to just simply return 0, because we just don't want anything there. And then if for any other case, it's just going to end up being over 2. So we can just go through the actual code. So first, we're going to create a variable for the last 2 characters of our string. So str and the length of the string -2 to the end. And of course, we don't have to put anything to the end. And also, this str just makes sure that this is a string. Or sorry, not that it's a string, that it's from the string that we have. And we're also going to have a little count variable just to count how many times the substring appears inside of our string. And then we're going to have a for loop that basically just checks every single area just to make sure that just to check if that specific substring appears in those 2 characters. So for I in range, and then we're going to have length of string -2, because of course we don't really care about the last few. because those don't count towards the actual count. Um, we're going to be checking. Sorry, I forgot a colon. If the string from I to I plus 2, because what that's doing is it's basically just checking the substring at that specific area, the two characters from there, and then we're checking if those are equal to last two. And then if they are, we want to add 1 to the count. So count plus equals 1. And then otherwise, we don't actually want to do anything. We don't want to add the count, decrease the count, anything. We just want to keep it the same. So we don't actually have to do anything with an else statement. So just return. We just want to return the count. And then it should go. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Array count 9. Basically, for this problem, we just want to find a number of 9s in an array. Not this pretty simple. So for this one, we're going to start. Or sorry, I should do it a little. We're going to start by having the count equal to 0 because we want to basically keep a count of how many of the number of 9s, and then for I in nums, because we want to check for every single number for I in nums. If that number, so if I is equal to 9, then we're going to increase the count by 1. So count plus equals 1. And then we're just going to have to return our count. Sorry, 1 second. I don't know why this is happening. Yeah, okay, there you go. And yeah, it's not that bad. Okay. We'll go to the next one. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Array front 9. So for this one, given like an array, we want to return true if the first 4 elements, if any of the first 4 elements is a 9. So like basically anything after the first 4 don't matter. It can be anything. It can be a 9. It can not be a 9. It doesn't matter. Just as long as one of the first 4 create a 9, we want to give a true. And if it's less than 4, then just if it's in there, I suppose. So yeah. For this one, we're going to first start with an if statement, because basically if a 9 is not present at all inside of our array, we know that's not going to be present in the first 4. So we're just going to say if not 9 in nums, saying that if the number 9 isn't in the array, we're going to return false. And then otherwise, we're going to sorry. um, yeah, and then basically going to have a for loop that checks for um, the first four elements inside of our array. Um, so for I in range 2, 4, we're basically just getting the first four, basically just checking for the first four specifically. And we're going to check um, if nums I is equal to 9. And then if it is, we're going to return true. And then otherwise, we're just going to not do anything. And then at the end of it, we're going to return false, because if it ends up going through the whole for loop without any of them being 9, then we're just going to return false. So if any of the first four are 9, we're returning true. Otherwise, if it gets through the whole for loop without returning true, we're just going to return false, because we know it's not going to be in the first four. Okay. I'll move on. Okay. Array 1, 2, 3. For this one, we're basically a little similar, but instead of looking for a specific number, we're instead looking for a sequence of numbers. So in this case, 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, if 1, 2, and 3, that specific sequence appears inside of our array, we're going to give true. So what we're going to do for I in range length. Oops, sorry. For I in range, the length of the array minus 2. And the reason why we're doing it like this is because we don't really need to check if the second to last one over is true, because it's a three number sequence, so that it can't start from the second to last one. And then we're going to basically, for each I value, we're basically going to check that that specific value in the array, then the one after, and then the one after that, to check if it's in 1, 2, and 3. So to do that, we'll write if nums I is equal to 1, because of course the first one has to be 1, and nums I plus 1 is equal to 2, because the one after that has to be 2, and then and nums I plus 2 is equal to 3, because of course the one after that has to be 3. We're going to return true. Otherwise, if we're able to get through the whole for loop, we just want to return false. And then it keeps happening. Okay, there you go. See, that's what we want. Oop, sorry. Okay. Okay, given two strings, A and B, return the number of positions where they contain the same length 2 substring. So basically, we're just getting two strings and seeing like how many substrings of like 2 are the same in both of them. um, and yeah. So, um, so, sorry, one second. Okay, sorry. For this one, we're going to start with a count, and basically that count is going to start at 0 because that count is just counting the number of length 2 substrings we have inside of that are shared. And then we're going to create a for loop saying for I in range, and inside of a range we're going to have len of a minus 1. Because of course they're length 2 substrings, so if we were to check the last one, it wouldn't really matter. And we're going to have an a. Let's just use a sub for a substring, and we're just going to make that equal to a very specific substring, just I to I plus 2. And then we're going to essentially do the same thing for our B substring. So B sub is equal to B I to I plus 2. And then we're basically just checking if they're equal. So if A sub is equal to B sub, we're basically just going to add 1 to the count. So count plus equals 1. And then we're just going to return the count. So yeah. So that was everything for warm-up 2. And then we'll go to string 1 next. And then we'll start with hello name. Just checking if does anybody want to go over anything specific, or should I just keep going with what I'm doing right now? Okay, I'll just keep going with these for now. Okay. So yeah, we'll start with hello name. So basically, we're going to be given a name inside of as our input. So in this case, we have Bob for the first example. And basically, we just want to say hello and then whatever that name is. So if it's Bob, hello Bob. If it's Alice, hello Alice. Pretty simple. So this one, we can simply just go straight to return statement because we're not doing anything complicated to it. We're just adding a hello in front of it. So we can just do hello, and then remember space or else it's going to look a little weird. And then we're going to want our name, whatever name is given. And then we're going to have an exclamation mark, because if you notice, there's an exclamation mark at the end of each of these. So we're going to also need to add that. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here, we want to basically, given 2 strings, we want to print the first string, and then the second string, and then the second string, and then the first string, whatever those 2 strings are, basically. So again, we're not doing anything very complicated. We're just adding a bunch of strings together. So we can just go straight to an return statement. And what we're going to do is we're going to first give A, and then we're going to give B, and then we're going to give B, and then we're going to give A. Just like because we're basically just adding all the strings together to create something like that. So yeah. Okay. Next, we're going to do make tags. So yeah, this is basically a lot of like the web stuff is built with HTML strings, with basically like these kinds of things. So basically, we just want to whatever is in our first thing, we want to make that inside of like our greater than less than signs, and then we want to put the second string inside of the greater than less than signs. So yeah, like for example, we have I and then yay. So we're putting our I's inside of the greater than less than symbols, and then we're putting the yays in between the two greater than less than symbols that contain the I's. So again, we're just adding a bunch of strings together, so we can go straight to return statement. And what we're going to be returning is our greater than symbol, and then our tag. Our tag, yeah. And then we're going to be giving our less than symbol, and that creates our first area. And then we want our word inside, so word from there. And then we're going to want to close it. So we're going to use that because if you notice, there's a little forward slash on each of these. And then we're going to put our tag again, and then we're going to put the greater than symbol. And then if we run this now, you'll see that it works. So yeah, we're basically just getting the greater than, and then we're just adding those parts to the parts of the string that we have. So yeah. Okay. Oops. Okay. So for this one, we're again, we're going to be given two strings. We're going to be given the out and the word. Basically, the out is going to be like we're basically just going to be surrounding the word in what's given in the out. So if you look at the first one, like here, we have greater than and less than symbols, and we have the yay on the inside. And that's just going to, we're going to enclose the yay in these greater than less than symbols. So to start this one, we're actually going to be doing another return statement because again, a lot of this is just adding strings. We don't really have to do any complicated code. So we're going to just be using a return statement directly. And since out we know is always going to be a string of length 4, we know that our mid like to separate them, we can do 0 to 2 and then 2 to the end, or I guess the beginning to 2 and then 2 to the end. So we can start with out from the beginning to 2, and then we can add our word in there, and then we're going to be giving our out from 2 to the end. And then if you run, sorry, if we run this, you'll see that it does exactly what we want it to. Yeah. Okay. So next one is called. Oh, sorry. It's called extra end. So basically, we want to, like given a string, we basically just want to repeat the last two characters of our string. uh, 3 different times. So here we have hello. We want to get the last two, LO, and then just repeat it 3 times. Um, so yeah, for this one, um, we're going to create a little substring. We're basically just going to put the last 2 characters um, inside of our inside of like a separate string. So let's create temp for like a temporary variable, and then we'll just make that equal to the string from -2 to 0. Or actually, it's the end. Sorry. Um, and from here, we can actually just return this right away. Because what we can do is we can just do 3 times temp, and then what that'll do is just do it'll just give it 3 times. So turn 3 temp just returns temp, which is our last 2, 3 separate times. Okay. Okay, we'll go over first 2 next. And so given a string, we want to just get the first 2 characters of our string and just return that. And then in like the case that it's shorter than length 2, so like if it's length 1 or even length 0, we just want to print whatever is given for whatever's is given. So yeah, this is pretty simple. We're going to just go straight to a return statement, and we can really just go from string 0. Oh, sorry, not 0. The beginning to 2, and this is because when we're given a string bigger than 2, this already works. It's already a built-in thing to get the first 2 characters. But even when we have something with just 2, it'll still do the same thing from beginning to 2. Nothing will really change if we have a character of length 2 versus a character of length 5. It'll just give the first few. So like that. Okay. Go to the next one. Oops. Okay. First half. So basically, for this one, we're going to be given 1 string, and we're basically just going from the start to the midpoint, basically. So we're just cutting the string in half and just printing the first half. So first thing that we'll do is we'll figure out where the midpoint of our string is. So to do that, we're just going to we'll call it I don't know, we'll call it just H. I just want to name it a single letter. And we're going to get the length of the string and then just divide it by 2. Because what that does is it basically just gets the midpoint. So if the string is length 6, we know the midpoint's at 3. If it's 10, we know it's at 5, and then so on. And then what we can do is just simply return our string, but with more specifically a substring from the beginning to H, because we know H is our midpoint, and that's exactly what we want to do. We want to return from beginning to the midpoint, because that's the same thing as just returning the first half of our string. And yeah, you'll see that it works here. Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to the next one. So, given a string, we want to return a version without the first and last car. So basically, we're just removing the first and last letters of our string, and then just printing out printing out whatever it gives. So yeah, this one again, pretty simple. We can go straight to return. And then we're going to just get a specific substring of here. And if you notice, we can just put a 1 here, because what that 1 does is basically starts from our first, or the character in the first position, which just automatically skips our first character. And then we can go straight to -1, because that's doing the exact same thing, except we're taking out the last letter. And basically just by offsetting these by 1, we're able to just take out the first and last letters automatically, and you'll see that it works here. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Combo string. So here we're being given 2 strings. First one being short, and this second one, or sorry, the whichever one's shorter, it can differ between the two. But what we want is we just want the whatever's the shorter string to be on the outside, and whatever's the longer string to be on the inside. So whether the first one is the short one, or the second one's the short one, it doesn't really matter. We always want to get it in the form short, long, short. So yeah. Where we're going to do this, we're basically going to check. We're basically just going to check whether the length of one of the strings is bigger than or is more than the length of the other string. So we can do that using an if statement. If len of A is greater than len of B, we just want to return B plus A plus B. And that's because in this case, B is going to end up being the shorter string, so we're going to put it in short, long, short. And in any other case, because we know that they're not going to be the same length, so in any other case, we're going to return the opposite. We're going to return A, B, B, A. So yeah, basically, if B is the shorter string, then we're returning B, A, B, and in any other case, since they can't be the same, that means that A has to be less than B, which means that A is a shorter string, so we're going to return A, B, A. Okay. Yeah, we'll just go to the next one. Okay. So non-start. Given 2 strings, return their concatenation except omit the first character of each. So yeah, here we're being given 2 strings, but we basically want to take out the first letter of each and then combine the 2 strings. So yeah, for this one, again, we're not doing anything really complex or anything, so we can go straight to a return statement. And what we're returning is just A from the first one to the end, because because if you remember, by going from 1 to the end, we're just basically skipping the first letter. And then we can do the same thing with B. So B1 to the end. Yeah. Sorry. Let me run the program. Yeah. Yeah. We'll go to the next one. Okay. Left 2. So, given a string, we want to return a rotated left 2 version where the first two characters are moved to the end. So I guess to explain this, we're basically getting the first two characters and just throwing them to the end, and everything else is going to be stay the same. It's kind of like, like it says, it's like rotating left. We're basically just pushing the whole thing left, and any excess characters to the left of it are just getting put all the way at the end. So yeah, this one, we aren't actually doing anything complex again. We're just adding a bunch of strings, and that's because what we can do is take from 2 to the end, because since we're rotating left, we want to start with from the second position all the way to the end, however many characters that is. And then we just want to get the first two characters after that. So we're going to add the string and then just get the first two characters from beginning to 2. And then that'll basically just do what we want, like that. Yeah, and I think that is everything for string 1. So yeah, if nobody has any questions or anything, we will move on to list 1. So yeah, list is just basically using lists and everything. So yeah, we'll start with the first one. First, last 6. So given an array of ints, return true if 6 appears either as the first or last element in the array. The array will be length 1 or more. Basically, if the 6 is either the first or last, if 6 is either the first or last, in the first or last position of our array, we're basically going to give true, and in any other case, we're going to give false. And yeah, so for this one, we're going to start with an if statement. So we're going to say if nums at -1 is equal to 6, or nums at 0 is equal to 6, then we're going to return true. And then if it goes through the if statement, and that's not true, we're just going to return false. And if you remember, -1 makes it so it starts at the end. So we're basically checking if the last position is a 6, or is the first position is a 6. If either of them are true, we're going to return true, and otherwise we're going to return false. So if I run this, you'll see that it works there. Okay. Let's move on. Okay. Same first, last. Given an array of ints, we want to return true if the array is length 1 or more, and the first element and the last element are equal. So basically, we need to check 2 things. We need to first check that the array is 1 or more, so it can't be an empty array. And we also want to check if the first and last elements are equal. So we're going to check the first condition first. So we need to check if the array is length 1 or more. So we're going to do if len nums is equal to 0, then we're going to return false. And then we also need to check if the first element and the last element are equal. We can actually do this with a really interesting way. return nums 0 and then equals nums -1. And basically, this is just the reason why we can do this is because if you remember, these operators end up giving us a Boolean. So this is either going to come out as true or false. So whatever it is, we just want to return that value. So by doing this just giving a true or false, we can return that Boolean. Or whatever Boolean it ends up giving. So if I were to run this, you'll see that it works. Yeah. Okay. Move on. Okay, here. We just want to make pi. Nothing really complicated or anything. We just basically want to return an array with just with the first one 3, then 1, and then 4. Yeah, nothing too complicated. And we can literally just return 3, 1, 4. And this should just work. Yeah. And nothing very complicated, just simple, just returning 3, 1, and 4 because that's what they wanted us to do. Yeah. Don't think it really needs too much explaining. Okay. Common end. Given two arrays of int a and b, we want to return true if they have the same first element or they have the same last element. So basically, given two lists, we want to check if both of them have the same element in the first, or I guess it would be the 0th position, or the same element in the last position. So again, we can use that trick that we had before, where we're going to return the Boolean straight into, or we're just going to straight return the Boolean that is given, and we're just going to check if the first or the 0th position in the first list is equal to the 0th position in the second list, and then or because either one of them can be true, and then a -1 equal to b -1, because we're just checking the ends with this one. And then go, you'll notice that it's completely fine. Okay. Yeah, next. The next one is sum 3. So for this one, we're going to be given an array, we're going to be given an array with 3 integers, and we basically just want to return the sum of all the 3 integers inside of our array. So for this one, we're going to just simply go to return statement because there's actually a function that we can use specifically for this, and we can just return the sum of nums, and you'll see that it actually does what we want, and that's because the sum function basically does exactly the things that we want. We want it to just sum up every single number inside of our list, and that's what the sum function is for, basically. I don't think that needs too much explaining, but yes, that's sum. Okay. Rotate left 3. Given an array of int length 3, return an array with the elements rotated left. So that just goes like just once. So if you remember that the string exercise that we did a little bit ago, it's kind of similar to that, but instead of doing it by two, we're doing it by one, and it's also a list instead of a string. Um, but yeah. Um, so for this one, uh, we're basically just going to we're, we're gonna do something little unorthodox, I'd say, but um, it it works. So we're going to go straight to return, and we're going to return nums one, and then nums two, and then nums zero. And what we're doing with this is we're basically creating a list of three letters, or sorry, not three letters, of three characters, I guess integers in this case, but we're putting whatever's in the first position, so the second integer, into the first list. And then we're doing this the second position into first position, and the zeroth position to second position. Um, and yeah, it's just the yeah, we're just creating a separate list and returning that list um, so that it does exactly that. Um, might have been a little confusing, but hopefully it makes sense to everyone. Um, yeah. Okay. Go next. So reverse three. Again, we're going to be given an array of length of three, and we just want to reverse the array. So if we have like 1, 2, 3, we're being given 3, 2, 1, and then so on and so forth. Um, for this one, there's actually again there's a specific thing that does exactly what we want, and that is nums dot reverse. Um, and nums dot reverse, it basically just, and we don't even have to like make another variable that's equal to that. We can just nums dot reverse. That just reverses the nums and makes nums the equal to the reverse of it. And then we can just return nums. And then, I mean, it reverses it. That's, we just return the reverse of nums. That's, yeah, this specific function does exactly what we want for the, um, it does exactly what we want for our purposes here. Um, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Okay. We'll go next. Max end. So here, given an array of int length 3, again, we just want to figure out um, which one's larger, the first or last one. And then we just want everything to be that value. So basically, we're just not caring about whatever the second one is. The second one can be whatever number. It can be a million. It can be zero. It can be negative 30. Um, just we only need to care about the first and third one here. So for this one, we're going to have two situations. We're going to have the situation where the first number is greater than the last number. And we're also going to have another situation where the last number is greater than the first. So we can use an if statement. We'll just use the situation where the first number is greater than the last number for now. So if nums0 is greater than nums2, we basically just want nums to be equal to um, nums0 because that's the bigger number, and we can actually just like copy and paste this 3 times. because if you remember, we need a list, a new list of length 3. And then we're just going to return nums. And then we need an else statement to take care of the other situation. And if you're wondering about like the equals situation, that's also technically covered in this, because if they're equal, we can technically use either the first or the last element just set that to everything. It doesn't matter which one we choose. So this also encompasses a situation where they're equal. But yeah, we're going to have nums is equal to nums2, and then we can repeat this again, copy and paste, and then end off that, and then we can return nums. So yeah, if I run this, it's all correct. And yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Sum2. Given an array of ints, we just want to return the sum of the first 2 elements in the array. And if it's less than 2, just sum of the elements that exist, returning 0 if the array is length 0. So basically, if the length is 0, we'll return 0. If the length is 1, we'll just return whatever numbers in the array. If it's length 2 or more, we're just going to get the first 2 elements in the array. So yeah. Okay. And for this one, we're just gonna have an if statement to check for our first case, which is if the length of the array is 0. So if len of nums is equal to 0, we're going to just return 0. And in the other case that, or another case, I mean, that the length is greater than 2, so len nums is greater than 2, or sorry, not greater than 2, less than 2. Sorry. I get them mixed up. We're going to return nums 0. And we're going to have another situation, an else statement, which just checks for, or not checks for, we're going to just return nums 0 plus nums 1. And the reason why we have to differentiate these two is because if we had a length of 1, if we tried to call this, it would actually give an error, because that's out of the bound, like out of the range of our array. So that's why we have to separate these two. So if you run this now, you'll see that it all goes correctly. Yeah, we'll just move on. Okay. Middle way. Given 2 int arrays A and B, each length 3, we want to return a new array length 2 containing their middle elements. So basically you're getting 2 length 3 arrays, and we just want to get the middle element of the first one and the middle element of the second one, and we actually want to put them into its own list. So the way we're going to do this, we're actually going to go straight to return statement, and we're going to return a list. And we're just going to return A1 and then B1, because those are going to be the middle elements of our list, because they're length 3. We know that they're length 3, so the middle one's always going to be at the first position. So A1 is the middle element of the first one, and B1 is the middle element of the second one. So we're basically creating a new list with the middle of A and the middle of B. And yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's move on. Make ends. So given an array of int, we want to return a new array, length 2, containing the first and last elements of the original array. So basically, this now we're not dealing with like arrays of length 3 anymore. We're dealing with like any length array. And we basically just want the first and last elements of that. So like 1, 3, 1, 4, 7, 2, and so on. And for this one, um, we're going to start with a new variable, and I guess we'll just call it like new because it's like we're making a new array, and we'll just make that equal to an array or a list. And what we're going to do is just do nums 0 because of course we want our first one, and we know that's going to be at least length 1 or more, and we can just have nums len of our nums -1, and then close the list like that. So basically, this is going to get the first element, and this is going to get the last element, except for if it's 1, it's just going to get the 0th element again. So it's just getting the element and then the element again. But that's what we want anyways. So and then we can just straight up return new. Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to the next one. Okay. So has 23. Given an int array of length 2, return true if it contains a 2 or a 3. So it can be either, really. So if a 2 or a 3 is in any of the the two elements in our list, we want to return true. And we can make use of our little like thing where we can just return a boolean directly, and we can just return 2 in nums, or 3 in nums, and that'll just like I mean two. This is just a straight boolean statement. So and we're just returning whatever it gives. So you'll see that it works. And I do believe that is everything inside of this area. So, I mean, there's no next. So yeah, that's everything in list. Yeah, and that's everything we're going to go over today. So yeah, next, yeah, sorry, 1 second. Yeah, next I'll pass it off to Julia for some more homework stuff.
Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. I'll just share my screen. Okay. So I'll be talking about loops today. So let's begin with the first exercise. So example 1 is print the first 10 natural numbers using a for loop. So I'm just gonna take that and put it common over here. Okay. Okay. So okay, for I in range 11, So this is, how do I get rid of that? Oh, sorry. Okay. So for I in range 1 to 11, colon print I. So what this will do using a for loop is that it'll start at number 1 and it'll keep on increasing by an increment of 1 until it reaches 11. And it actually stops before 11 instead of doing 11. And so if we run it through here, you can see that how it started at the first number, it increased by 1 each time, but it stopped before reaching 11. So pretty simple, and this is just how a loop functions. For example 2, use a Python program to print all the even numbers within the given range. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so since they say that we have a given range, I'm just gonna create an integer called range and set it equal to, let's say, 50. So to print all the even numbers, I'm gonna do for I in range 50. And what I'm gonna do is it, sorry, yeah, if I, and I'm gonna use the modulus equals 0, and I'm gonna print I. So how this works is, okay, sorry. Okay, sorry, just like 1 sec. Oh, okay. Oops. Okay, so I shouldn't have named this range. I'm just gonna call this num because range is supposed to be a keyword in a Python that's dedicated to the use in for loops. So instead, I'm gonna name this num in order for Python to not get confused. And so what this does is that it's going to start from 0, go up to 59, and for every number in those boundaries, I'm going to check if that number has a remainder of 0 when divided by 2. And if it does, we know that it's going to be an even number, and therefore we can print it. And if we run this, you can see that it starts at 0 and it keeps on going until we reach 58. And that's how it works. Okay. Now on to example 3. Create a Python program to calculate the sum of all the numbers from 1 to a given number. So let's try this one. Python program to calculate the sum for all the numbers from 1 to a given number. Okay, so since they say that we have a given number, I'm just going to do num equals, let's do 50 again. So I'm going to do if, so since we're using for loops, I'm going to do for int for I in range 50. Well, before I do that, up here I'm going to add a sum because we're going to add all the numbers from 1 to 50 up until we get the total, and therefore I'm going to start the sum at 0. And therefore, from the numbers to a given number, I'm going to do sum equals sum plus I. So sum starts at 0, but for every number from 0 to 49, we're going to be adding that number. And if you are, well, since it's kind of ambiguous whether they want us to include the number 50, the given number or not. If you do want to add the given number, this should be num right here, then we could do num plus 1, which would result in us um, including the number 50 in the sum. So that's how you'd, oh, and I don't want to print the sum. So printed, and you get the total sum, and this is including the given number. We just did that by doing a plus 1 right here, because usually in Python they would exclude the number that's given here. Okay. So Python. So let's move on to example 4. Create a Python program to calculate the sum of all the odd numbers within the given range. Yeah. So I'm actually gonna just keep this original program right here. It's pretty similar. The only difference is that we're only adding odd numbers instead of including even as in the previous one. And therefore, in order to do this one, we're going to have to add a if statement in here. So you can do if I, again, we're using modulus 2 is equal to 1, right? Then we're going to do sum plus sum plus 1. What this does is that as before, we're gonna start from 0, going all the way to 50. But the difference is that it first checks is that if the number that we're on, when divided by 2, has a remainder of 1, which would signify that it is an odd number, and therefore we're gonna add it to sum. And if we run this, you can see that it's much smaller than the previous number we got because it's excluding all the even numbers. Okay, so let's move on to number 5, which is create a Python program to print a multiplication table of a given number. Okay, so let's begin. We have the given number. Let's say it's um, 12 right now. So I'm gonna start from 4, and usually the multiplication tables I've seen go from 1 to 10. So I'm going to do for I in range 1, 0 through 11. Some of them, like, it goes from 0 to 10. And how we're gonna do this is that we're gonna do print. We're gonna do I plus x plus the, okay, actually it'd be better to start off with num plus that plus I equals, and again we're going to add num multiplied by I. Oops, okay, and we're going to convert these integers into strings to make it more cohesive, because you can't add integers to strings. Yeah. So you can see right here that in order to create a multiplication table, I did a loop from 0 to 11, which really means that I'm going to be using the numbers 0 to 10. And then I printed the number that the given number, which is 12 in this case, times, and then I printed the number we're looping through in order to get a table like this, equals the actual answer. And I made sure that you have to cast the ints as strings because Python requires you to convert ints to strings before adding them to other strings. Okay, moving on to example 6. Create a Python program to display numbers from a list using a for loop. Okay, so let's go through this one. Python program to display numbers from a list. So first, let's begin by creating a list. List of nums. Let's call it that. So I'm going to do this, and let's create just random numbers in this list. Okay. Oh, yikes. Okay. And then we're going to use a for loop. So for num in list of nums, we're going to do print num. So unlike the previous for loops we used, which went from 1 to 3 in like a for I in range aspect. This is the traditional for loop. It just uses numbers. This is more like an enhanced for loop, and it lets you do loop through lists, through strings, through tuples, a lot of things in Python. And you can see right here that if we run it, num began at 34, and it looped through all of these different items before ending at 5. So you can see it went through all of these and just traversed through the list. Okay, number 7. Create a Python program to count the total number of digits in a number. So like before, let's just begin with a number to begin. And this time, let's make it a bit longer, like that. And typically you might use a different method or something else, but you can use a while loop in this case. So let's begin with a count at 0 just to keep track of how many digits there are. And so let's do a 4. Okay. And let's convert this num into a string and so we can traverse through the traverse through it. So we can do num equals string num. And we do 4 letter in num. We're going to do count plus plus. So the reason I converted this, okay, count equals count plus 1. Let's do that. Oh, and I forgot to print and count. Okay. So to explain this, we began with our number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4. And then we had a number count, which kept track of how many digits there were. And the reason I casted this int into a string was that if I had done for L in int, then that would have made me go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until like a million digits to this number. And that's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for the number of digits, not the total sum of the digits. And therefore, that's why I converted into a string first, which means that I'm going to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to each individual digit in this individual letter in the string. And every time I did a new letter, I can increase the count by 1 in order to get the length of that string. So this is one way to use a for loop, in order to get the number of digits in a number. Okay, example 8. Create a Python program to check if the given string is a palindrome. So a palindrome means that it's the same forwards and backwards. For example, if I had 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, it'd be the same 1, 2, 3, 2, 1 forwards as it is backwards. So since we're given a string, let's create a string. So let's just have given string equals hello. And we can do new string equals empty. Let's just leave it on empty first. And what we can do is for letter in given string, for each letter, so we're going to be for looping through all the letters, we're going to do new string equals L plus new string. And what this does is that for every letter in given string, so it's going to go from HELLO, we're going to add that letter to new string, but not at the end, because if he added it at the end, then it would have created hello again. Instead, we are adding it at the beginning of the new string each time to make it go backwards. So let me print that right here. And you can see right here how we got the backwards version of hello because we added the letters in front of the new string. However, this isn't what we're trying to do in this question. In this question, we're trying to check if the given string is a palindrome. So we need to say if it's like is or is not a palindrome. And the way we can do this is that we can do if given string equals new string, then we can print it is a palindrome. Else, if it is not equal, we can print it is not a palindrome. Okay, so let's try running this. And just say, oh yeah. And yeah, it is not a palindrome because clearly hello is not backwards for Ole. But however, maybe if we did something like aha, which is obviously a palindrome, and you run this, you can see right here that it is in fact a palindrome because it's the same forwards and backwards. So this is how you use loops to create a palindrome and check if something is a palindrome. Okay, so we've done something pretty similar in question 8. Does anyone have any suggestions on how we just solve number 9 then? Python program that accepts a word from the user and reverses it. Feel free to type it into any of the playgrounds or chats. It kind of uses a similar concept from number 8. And remember, we want to use for loops a bit to do this. Few more minutes. String input, enter the string. Oh yeah, new. Yeah, that seems pretty good. Let me type that up in here. So so let's put that here. String equals input and enter the string. New equals empty string for I in a string. New equals and plus new print new. Okay, let's try running this program. Enter the string. How about I write hello? Yeah. Okay. Okay, perfect. Let me just copy this. So you can see right here, yeah, we got the inputs from the user, got a string from the user, and we have an empty string for the backward string to go into. And we for loop through the input, but every time we go to a new letter, we put it in front of the new string, and therefore we create a backwards string. So yeah, good job. Yeah, worked perfectly. Okay, so Python program is an odd number. So let's see, Armstrong number. Okay, I had to search up what an Armstrong number was, but what an Armstrong number is that if you have a number like 1, 2, 3, then if an Armstrong number would have 1 to the power of the length of this number plus 2 to the power of the length of this number plus 3 to the power of the length of this number. And if this was equal to 1, 2, 3, it would be considered an Armstrong number. It's pretty confusing, but we'll go through it. So let's say a given number is 543. So how you check if a given number is an Armstrong number is first, let's do sum equals 0. This is where we're going to be storing all those numbers and yeah, those numbers. So how we're going to do this is that for okay, and like before, we're going to turn num into cast it as a string, because when we do the for loop, we don't want to be going from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way to 542. That's not our intention this time. Instead, we want to see the individual digits. So we want to go 5, 4, 3, which means we have to for loop through a string, not an integer. So it'd be 4, how about I in num? And what we're going to do is we're going to do sum plus sum equals sum plus integer of I to the power of length of num. So kind of confusing, weirdly long. Let me just explain it. So we have the sum here, and for each digit of the num, we're going to take that number, cast it back into an integer because it was previously a string, and we're going to bring it to the power of the length of this number. And since the number is 3 digits long, we're going to bring it to the power of 3. However, if this was a 4-digit long number like this, it would be brought to the power of 4. So it depends on the length of the number. And then we're going to add it to the sum to check if it's an Armstrong number. So the way you check that is if sum is equal to int num, just put that in parentheses, then we can print we're checking if it's equal to print it is an Armstrong number, and else print it is a normal number. So let's see how this works. We run through it, and this time it says that 543 is a normal number. However, I know that 153 is in fact an Armstrong number. And so let's test it and see. We run it, and yeah, it works. So it states that 153 is an Armstrong number because, let's see, so we'd have 1 plus 125 plus 9, and supposedly that, no, that's kind of, okay, 1 plus 125 plus 27, and supposedly that equal to 153, which makes it an Armstrong number. Okay. Python. Okay, let's go on to example 11, which is create a Python program to count the number of even and odd numbers from a series of numbers. So let's put that in a comment up here. So, okay. So by a series of numbers, I'm going to assume they mean a list of numbers. So we're going to have a list, and we're going to have it filled with numbers. So let's pick random numbers. Okay, like that. And so we're going to count the number of evens and odds. So let's just create 2 integer values that will keep track of how many evens and odds there are. Okay, and so what we do after this is that we'd for loop through each of the numbers in the list of nums, and we check if I is modulus 2 equals 0, which would imply it's an even number, then even is equal to even plus 1. And if it is not an even number, it has to be an odd number, so odd equals odd plus 1. So you can see right here that we used modulus again. It's the most effective way of checking if a number is even or odd. So if I divided by 2 does not have any remainder, it's going to be even, else it's gonna be odd. And therefore, let's just print out even plus even and print odd. Oops, that's odd. Let's try this out and see. Hopefully it works. Yikes. Okay. As always, Python does not accept an int being added to a string, so you have to cast it as a string before you add it to another string. Okay, so we've done this. You run it, and you see that there's 4 even numbers and 3 odd. Looking at this, it seems quite reasonable. There's 32, 34, 2, 4, 6, and 6. Those are all even, and 5, 67, and 43 are all odd. So yeah, that's how you'd count how many numbers that are even and odd are in a series. Okay, let's go on to example 12. Create a Python program to display all numbers within a range except for the prime numbers. So this one's a bit trickier than the previous one so far, but still doable. Python programs. Okay, so what I do here is create a function. We learned those last week, I think, to check if something is prime or not. Let's do check is not prime. And so this is going to return a true if it's not prime and a false if it is. Oops. Okay. And we're going to put num right here to signify the number. So what we're going to do is that, yeah. So we're going to have a Boolean that is um, that's how should I name this? Okay, so we're gonna do for int. Okay, for int equals. Okay, sorry. We're gonna do yes or no, and we're gonna currently set it to true. Okay, sorry. Let's change this definition to is prime. I feel like that's gonna be easier. No, is not prime. Sorry about that, guys. So we're gonna keep the function is not prime. So what we're gonna do is for, and we're gonna start for I in range, and we're gonna do the int version of the math dot square root of num. And what you have to do here is you have to import math. Okay. Int square root of num. And this is gonna go from 0 to all the. This is gonna go from 0 to all the numbers until the square root of the integer, and if num modulus that I go to 0, then we know that it's gonna be a return true, and if we go all of these, return false. Okay, let me explain to you a bit more about what this function does. So it's gonna check if a number is prime or not. And what it means is that for I in the range till the square root of number, and I chose to do until the square root of that number because if there's not going to be a greater factor of num that hasn't already been like canceled out by the lower factors. So num, the square root is the biggest number that we have to check if we're checking for factors. And just in case, we could also add +1 in here to include the square root of the number, just in case that is one of the factors. So for all of the numbers leading up to the square root, we're going to check if that number is divisible by that factor. If it is, then clearly the number num is not a prime number, and therefore we're going to return true. It is not prime. Otherwise, if we made it through this entire list of possible factors and none of them worked, then it's gonna end up that we're returning false, that the number is in fact a prime number. And therefore, to check all the numbers within a range, let's just create a range of numbers. Yeah. And always, like, this problem is pretty tricky. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions. Range of numbers, I'm gonna enter 23 in here as a random number. So what you'd do in this scenario is that for all of the numbers I in range 23, so range of numbers. So for all of the numbers that are from 0 to 23, we're gonna try printing them. But we first have to check if a number is a prime number, we're not gonna print it. Else we are. So how we do this is that if I is not prime and I, then we can print I. So you can see right here that we had to check if the number that we're looking at is not prime, we can print it. Otherwise, we cannot. So let's try running this and seeing if it works. Oops, oopsie daisies. Let me see if I imported it correctly. Just sorry guys, one sec. Import math. Okay, it's lowercase. And import, and this is also lowercase. So not uppercase. Is that the issue? Oh, okay. Okay, so in this case, one thing we gotta remember is that we're gonna be inserting numbers in here that we're using to divide, and therefore we can't divide by a 0. That would cause an error, as it evidently did, and therefore we have to start it from 1 comma range of numbers, which means that it start at 1 and go up to the range of numbers instead of starting at 0. And this gets rid of the error message that you can't divide by a 0. So let's run it and see how it works. Yikes. Okay. Okay, sorry. We also have to do the very exact same thing here for the same reasons. And down here, you don't actually need to do it because you're not dividing by pi. Okay. Finally, after getting all of the error messages about the zeros, actually, okay, let's just see why this is not working. So for I in range 1 through the integer square root number, if I is 0, 0, return true, otherwise return false. Okay. Okay, another thing, we also can't start with 1 because 1 is not considered a proper factor, and anything can be divided by 1, so it has to start with 2. So we have to exclude both 0 and 1 because both of them are not the proper numbers to be dividing by. So after that error, let's hopefully run it and see. Yeah, finally it all works out. We've got everything but the prime numbers. All the numbers you see here are actually divisible by some factor of some sort, and therefore they're not prime. So that was problem number 12. Does anyone have any questions? This one was a bit tricky and complex, especially with the use of functions. Okay. Um, since we have mm, only a bit of time left, I'm gonna skip example 13 and move on to example 14. I believe we can finish that in the time. So number 14 is that create a Python program to find a factorial of a given number. And just to clarify, a factorial of a number is like, for example, you have 5 factorial. This would mean you do 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So getting all the numbers, multiplying that number with all the numbers below it. And this is um, this is really nice to do with for loops because it makes the process much easier than counting everything out. So we have a given number, let's say it's 2034. And we're gonna have a factorial. And this time, instead of starting with 0, we're gonna start with 1. And if it started with 0, it'd always be 0. So we're starting with 1. And we're gonna go through a for loop. So for I in range 1 through none. And the reason I did started it at 1 is that, like I said, you can't multiply by 0 because it turned everything else to 0. So we're gonna start it at 1. And we're actually gonna do num plus 1 because in this case we're finding a factorial of a given number, and therefore we want to include the number within it. And we're just gonna do factorial equals factorial multiplied by I. So let's see, and we're gonna print factorial, and let's see what this does. Let's run it. Oh yikes! Is it down here? Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So that is hopefully the factorial of 34. I can't really cross-check it right now. Let me just do this with an easier number. But that's okay, yeah. This gets the factorials of the numbers, and you can see right here that for 5 factorial, it is going to be 120 because 5 factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 5 times 4 is 20, times 6 is going to be 120. And you can really see how for loops are useful in this case because they're going to go from all the digits from 0 to that number in increments of 1 automatically, and it's pretty useful. Okay, so that's all the time there is for the examples on for loops today. So I'll be passing this on to Aiden. Um,
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Sorry. 1 second. So for homework, sorry, give me a second. I need to share my screen. Um, so for homework, um, you're going to want to do logic 1 and logic 2 inside of coding bat. There's not too many problems here. There's 9 there, and then there's 7 there. So yeah, good luck on those. And also, we're going to assign you loop exercise 3. I think I might have to send the doc for that, but yeah. Hold on, sorry. Let me send that there. Um, should be this. Oh, okay, never mind. It was already sent. Yeah, so that's gonna be the homework that you have to do for tomorrow, I think. And yeah, good luck with those. If you guys have no further questions, don't want to really take up too much of your time. So yeah, we'll if you have no other questions, then yeah, we're done for today. Bye.